Why are the Heralds of Unicron so expensive? I often question why certain figures command such high prices in the aftermarket, so when I think about the fact that I own these figures, it makes me feel giddy and a little odd in some places. Back in 1999, fusers were introduced into the Beast Wars toy line. They featured hybrid creatures where two characteristics of animals combined to make the beast modes of our heroic Maximals and evil Predacons. Unfortunately, for the Beast Wars series in the US, only 2 of the 12 fusers were featured from the toy line, Silverbolt and Quickstrike. Luckily, Japan's sequel series Beast Wars Neo was able to breathe new life into 3 of the characters from the toy line and turn them into Heralds of Unicron, the Blentrons. First, we have Ratorata, a slight repaint of the Predacon Injector, who is a lionfish-hornet combination. Drancron, a sleek red and orange highlighted version of the Predacon Sky Shadow, a dragonfly lizard abomination. And lastly, we have Orfa, a hulking elephant killer whale that is a blue version of the Maximal Torka. As fusers go, they really highlight the beast combination aesthetic, and even more so for the Japanese repaints. Taking a look at Ratorata, he really shines with how big he is, since he's basically the same size as the 2022 Voyager figure in beast mode. And I can really appreciate all the hornet characteristics that are shown on his body, because he really only has his head that has any resemblance to a lionfish. Articulation is pretty good. He has a hinge on his jaw, his legs are on ball joints, the legs that become his robot legs also have a knee, and his wings can rotate and have hinges for dynamic poses. He also has 2 gimmick features. His abdomen can launch his stinger as a spring-loaded missile, and his head has an attack feature when you push forward on his gills. Transformation is pretty simple. First, remove his abdomen from the back to reveal his arms. Straighten out his legs and open his feet. Spread his arms to the sides. Twist his head around and reveal his head by pushing down his upper fish teeth. Then, you're done. If you want, you can maneuver his bug feet to make him look a little more menacing, but that's up to you. So this is pretty much his robot mode. A little short, but overall a great design. His articulation from his beast mode pretty much carry over into robot mode, so there isn't anything new or interesting on those points. This is also the mode where you can see the slight difference in paint applications from the American one. You see the gray bits on his arms, pelvis, and thighs? On the Japanese version, they are a light gray, and in the American version, as seen in this picture, you can see they are painted black. And that's it. So if you're thinking about buying this particular figure, you're basically paying an extra $100 for a very minor repaint. Did I forget to mention this guy currently goes for about $150 to $200 on the aftermarket? It's insane. And this guy is just the second most expensive of the Blentrons. Looking at the cheapest Blentron, Drancron is probably the best repaint among the 3. It's really clear that the designers of his toy really focused on the lizard parts as opposed to the dragonfly bits, because the dragonfly bits featured are pretty much just on his wings. His articulation is pretty good too, being able to move around his arms and legs, which are all on ball joints, so he has a pretty wide stance. He can even do that push-up thing that lizards do when they're out and about in the sun. He has a hinge on his mouth, and his wings are also pretty articulated as well, with the back set being tied to a gimmick that's a little bit more apparent in his robot mode. His transformation is the most complicated of the 3, and surprisingly very fun to do since it has a lot of moving parts to it. First, you want to disconnect his back set of wings, then disconnect his head from his neck. You'll pull the lizard arms out of the way so they allow the torso area to move, and you'll maneuver the wings out of the way as well. When you get clearance, you'll disengage his entire torso so that you can shift his back wings and heads to become his arms in robot mode. Next, you'll move around his lizard legs so you can twist his lower body. Reveal his head from the lizard tail and bring it up his back. Readjust his fat pack, then give the final touches by revealing his hand from the lizard head and adjusting his torso wings. Then, voila! You have his robot mode. A really involved transformation sequence, but ultimately satisfying when you see the end result. This guy looks really cool, what with his giant scissor arm and mouth missile. He has 2 main gimmicks in this mode. First is the aforementioned scissor arms that has this lever that allows it to open and close. Then he has a pressure-forced missile that shoots from his mouth. Articulation on Drancron is fantastic. He has the most posability compared to the other Blentrons, and is probably due to the lack of kibble floating around his robot mode. If anything, he is arguably the best design overall. Not only does he have a well-designed beast and robot mode, but his repaint is really dynamic considering that Sky Shadow's original deco was just a flat green with a few blue highlights. We now come to the most expensive of the trio, Orfa, And it could be because of limited printing, but may also stem from the fact that his American counterpart is Torka, one of the poor figures cursed with the gold plastic syndrome, also known as GPS. In short, older Transformers made with gold plastic, not painted gold, are more susceptible to breakage due to its chemical makeup. So if anyone had a gold Transformer, over time it would just fall to pieces if not taken care of. Back to the figure, he looks absolutely menacing. Considering his beast combination is a whale and an elephant, you'd think he'd be a Voyager-sized figure, but he's definitely the size of a deluxe. Which is disappointing because in the anime, he's basically the same size as the Maximal Leader Big Convoy, but as a toy, he's significantly smaller. His articulation is pretty limited as well. His front legs are able to move because it's his arms in robot mode, and his back legs don't really have that much movement. His tail and mouth also have joints, but they're mostly just for transformation. He also has this gimmick where you can move his dorsal fin to have his tusks do this capture action. Transformation is really simple on this guy. First we'll take off his dorsal fin that becomes his gun accessory. Then we'll move his tail up, open up his chest, straighten out his legs, and put his pelvis together. Put down the arms, then rotate the hands so they're facing forward. Split open his beast face and make little wings. And lastly, we'll push down his mouthpiece. And we have Alpha Orfa, all transformed and looking fabulous. I think the design for this guy is really fantastic. Definitely looks like a vicious character, and it's a wonder why his American counterpart is a Maximal and not a Predacon, particularly with the design on his face. Although, it's probably because he's a mammal, since Predacons were usually insects or reptiles. Again, looking at his robot mode, I do want to mention his size. He's definitely a lot smaller and leaves a lot to the imagination, particularly if you wanted to recreate his fight with Big Convoy because he's just so much smaller. Articulation is pretty straightforward. Arms are limited by the back kibble that gets in the way, and legs have pretty full movement, but it leaves a lot to be desired in the posing department due to old toys not commonly having ankle joints. His accessory is pretty neat since it's a water gun, which used to be a common play feature found in toys back in the 90s. Overall, the Blentrons are really awesome, and seeing how strong they were in the Beast Wars Neo anime, they really made me like their characters, and particularly because I really like having Heralds of Unicron in my collection. I really wish they had bigger figures so that they would be in a much better scale to other characters. But as far as owning though, I really wouldn't recommend these figures to people only because all three of them could easily cost you over $500. So if you were looking for these, I would probably suggest getting their Fuser counterparts instead since it would be significantly cheaper. Although Torka will have GPS, so you do have to be careful about that. Another alternative could probably just to buy other figures in general, because with $500, you can get quite a bit. In fact, you could get a modern Commander, a Titan, and even HasLab Starsaber all together. I mean, look at the difference between these figures. Would you rather have these three awesome pieces of Transformer history, or these really great figures as well? Either way, I hope you enjoyed looking over this trio of Transformers. This has been a review on the Beast Wars Neo Blentrons. Thanks for watching. Love is here, 命のある限り君は Dream of Love 守り続けてゆく